everybody, it's Romania Black. So I'm on episode 21 of season 4 of Attack on Titan, and to put this into context, I took a solid week off because I had to leave for work to go out of town without my computer, and so I couldn't do any reactions while I was gone. So I recorded episode 20 literally the night before I left, and I meant to come back. I came back. I was gone for 5 days. Came back on Sunday, and then I was like, oh, I'll record episode 21. And guys, I just couldn't do it. I just was not in a good headspace. To be honest, to give you guys just a frame of context, usually if I sit down to record one of these episodes for Attack on Titan, I try to devote like a 4 to 5 hour chunk, because like last episode, maybe I'll talk for 3 hours. Who knows? And in that case, then you have to edit and record. You have to edit and get it ready for YouTube and all that. And I try to do that the night of. So anyway, I just could not get in the right headspace. I still need to think about it. I'm like, I'll wait till some more comments come out, and then after I see what people think about episode 20, then this is the first time I'm kind of stressed, to be honest, because I've normally been a couple episodes ahead of Patreon. This is the first time since I've started the series that I'm on the same page as y'all. Episode 20 came out today on Patreon. Episode 18 came out on YouTube, so I'm not ahead at all, and I need to be to get away from spoilers and all that stuff. So I'm a little paranoid about spoilers. Please don't spoil me, and especially at this point in the series. But yeah, I did get notes, lots of notes from the recap, episode 17 and 18 on YouTube, and episode 20 on Patreon. I haven't gotten through all of the comments on episode 18 and 20. I haven't gotten through everything. There's still, I figure I'm going to watch episode 22 probably in a couple days to try to get myself ahead again. And so anything I missed from episodes 18 and 20, I'll probably touch base on in episode 22. And I'm excited. I'll get to see the OP at that point. Yay! So that's exciting. But a lot of these comments that I've highlighted are based about Eren. And I was telling Maya on the Discord this afternoon, I was like, oh, because she posted a theory, and I ended up reading it right before recording this, Maya, because it's not spoilery, and it actually ties to something I was thinking about on my way home from work today, so it's funny you posted that, but I'll talk about it a little bit before we start, and then I'll talk about it after the reaction and the discussion. But I have theories that when I went back and rewatched and edited the video for episode 20, I've had other theories about Eren kind of pop up, especially with all of this Attack Titan, Future Sight, all of that pop up. But I didn't want to talk about them yet because I want to, episode 20, it didn't necessarily end on a cliffhanger per se, but it left before we had certain things answered. Like, what is Eren's ultimate plan? I guess we'll find out in this episode next, but I didn't want to really go over some of the concepts I was thinking about, even though I talked for 3 hours about last episode, dear Lord. I still didn't want to talk about everything because I want to see what plays out in this episode. And then from there, I've got some ideas, but I don't want to get too into them and then watch the episode and it completely get debunked. So I'll talk a little bit about it before we start, but I'm going to save most of these comments about Eren until after the episode and then touch base on them. But this is going to be a little bit of a long intro, so bear with me. But I do have some comments from the recap, episodes 17, 18, and 20 that I want to get through. Many people have noted, and way too many to count, but many people have noted that the manga chapter 119 that happens in episode 19, it ends with Eren's head being shot off. And then you all had to wait a month. What? You all deserve medals. You all deserve medals. That's awful. That's the cruelest thing I think Isayama's done so far, is make you all suffer a month after that moment. I can't imagine the fan theories, the chaos, the insanity. I've been on forums for manga when you've had like a month-long break. I was on the One Piece forums during like the 2-year time skip arc. People were going crazy with theories. So I can't imagine an Attack on Titan what that was like. I want to go back and find those forums online at some point when I've caught up and just try to find those archived forums for that chapter just to see how maddening it was. I need to see the madness. So whenever I'm caught up, I think that'll be one of the first things I do is go find a manga forum for chapter 119 and be like, what was everybody thinking? So, but that's insane. And some of you were like, oh, they should have ended part 1 at that moment. How cruel. That would have sucked. Could you imagine? The anime only people like me would have been like, nope, gotta go read the manga now. Also, Demi and several of you pointed out, this is probably the most bizarre thing, but in episode 19, where there's all the shards and all the memories and everything, which I guess ties to the poster, that goth girl, I thought she was like one of the three daughters. It's Mikasa, and the girl with glasses is Armin, and it's from some kind of high school cast thing that Isayama did, and they just had Mappa put it in as a parody. What? I'm like, Isayama, what? That's totally non-diegenic. That's like, what are you, that has nothing, that's like out of reality, the most surreal, bizarre, bonkers thing, and you choose to put it in that moment. What? I just messing around. My mind was mush. It's already mush and we haven't even started the episode, so there you go. But yeah, crazy talk. Episode 19 was a trip. It's one of my favorite episodes, but it was such a trip, and it's only gotten trippier from there. D. Munoz talked about how Armin actually mentioned back in episode 9 and episode 10 of part 1 of season 4 how touching another Titan could spark memories. He was telling that to Hitch. So I was like, oh, so it's curious. I'm like, did Armin learn that from Eren telling him that? Or did Armin learn that from Bertolt? Did Bertolt's memories tell him that? Because how did he know that? How did he figure it out? I want to say it was Eren, but after this last episode, I'm like, did Eren reveal that to him or not? Or did he keep it secret and Armin just learned it from Bertolt and didn't tell Eren? That's the interesting thing. I'm not so sure. Interesting. Jimmy Lucian pointed out that and posited, did Grisha inadvertently start the plague back at Shiganshina? Because Grisha had been from Marley, who had had advancements in medicine, but also had contact with other people. And so viruses and diseases there had probably spread, mutated, and evolved. And in Parody, it had been in an isolated area where it hadn't. So Grisha being this foreign body being put into Shiganshina, did it inadvertently caused the plague that all the people came down with? And maybe Grisha felt really guilty because he's like, well, shit, I started this plague. And so that's why he possibly healed everyone, because he was like, I need to heal this, it's my fault. Which, we'll talk about this in relationship to that last episode, but I thought that was really interesting, Jimmy. I was like, oh, that's a really cool concept, that it adds to Grisha's tragedy in a way, because Grisha is a tragic figure. He's gone through like the ringer of, my views of Grisha has gone up and down this entire series. But last episode, Grisha's voice actor, oh my God, like him just running the gambit of emotions. And Grisha just being so, because you get the idea that Grisha values community. He values society in a way that Eren clearly does not. And so surely Grisha felt guilty if he's like, oh crap, I'm the reason this plague started. And he felt an obligation to heal everyone in Shiganshina with it. So that's interesting. It just adds to his tragedy a little bit more, right? Albertan motorcyclist pointed out that Onyankapan, when he said in the episode, at the start of episode 17, when he said, we brought this place out of the past, it was a really cool tie-in, or maybe it was episode 16. It was a really cool tie-in and parallel about how Grisha talked about the Eldians cultivating and building all the infrastructure through the power of the Titans. And the idea is that Grisha, when he was telling that story to the restorationists and interpreting Ymir's presence as the Titan as something that was beneficiary, that helped develop infrastructure and develop the world, what he was doing is focusing on the progress that the power of the Titans caused, but not necessarily the less savory details of how that progress was accomplished. So leaving out the mention of how the Eldian Empire kind of came about, and that kind of ties to the present time where Onyan's like, yeah, we use the spinal fluid, but it was all servicing a greater good, right? So the difference, though, is that Grisha fully embellishes and gets wrapped up in the idea of this progress despite the ways that it came about. Whereas Onyan clearly has some disdain. He's not very keen on the fact that they've had to do things this way, but he's trying to convince himself that it was necessary for progress, right? The framing is what matters. It's the perspective that matters in this situation. And it's a nice connection to episode 20 of how perspective matters. How we frame things makes a big difference. So there you go. I also wanted to Zombin, I'm going to bring up your comment at the end during the discussion. I'm going to bring that up there. Maya B and Alex Johnson noted about talking about Gabi shooting Eren. And I didn't really talk about this, I guess, in the discussion for episode 19. But the idea that Gabi shooting Eren, it wasn't necessarily for revenge anymore. She wasn't doing it out of revenge for Liberio, but to stop him from touching Zeke and essentially, in her eyes, to save the world. Because it's totally different from Colt. She stopped Colt from shooting Niall because Niall wasn't a threat. Niall had Falco, but he wasn't a threat to anyone. He was actually there to help. She knows that Eren is a threat in this instance. So the framing of why she didn't have Colt shoot Niall, but she did end up shooting Eren is totally different. And I think that that's really important to make a distinction about, right? And then a lot of people argued on here that, you know, in Gabi's mind, it wasn't out of hatred. It wasn't out of like her tears in her eyes as she shoots him. It's just like, no, I have to do this. Again, tying very much to Eren, right? And then Christopher Peterson noted that poor Reiner, surviving is Reiner's divine punishment. And I wholeheartedly agree. Reiner lives and Eren seemingly dies despite them both wanting the reverse. I put down here, both are desperate for the reverse. Reiner desperately wants to be able to die in peace, but the story's like, nope, not time yet. You got to keep going. And Eren desperately wants to live, but he's the one that gets his head shot off. So it's like, it's fate, right? Two sides of the same coin. And so Christopher Peterson also noted that I was talking about how Falco in episode 19 disobeyed Zeke and he ate Porko instead of continuously going after Reiner like he was ordered to. But Christopher noted that back in season 2, and I'd forgotten about this, back in season 2, the Titan that was with Zeke had disobeyed him and tried to bite and munch on Mike, and he was punished for it. So clearly some of these Titans, even though Zeke controls them, they are capable of getting out of his free will, out of his will somewhat. So I think that's important to note, that some of the Titans can resist Zeke even though he's supposed to control them. I think that's a really important thing, especially since we don't know what's going to happen to Zeke in this episode. Maybe that'll have some tie into it. Al Sora noted that back in episode 10 of season 1, Armin was trying to convince the garrisons not to kill Eren, and it's kind of a mirror of what's happening now. That now Armin is trying to do the same with all of the cadets, all of the fellow, 104th troop, that he's like, we need to help Eren because of X, Y, and Z, and it's paralleling back in season 1, episode 10, where Armin's like, you don't need to kill Eren because of X, Y, and Z. So Armin is trying his best to convince others not to kill Eren. And is that a good idea? We'll see. We'll see after this episode, won't we? But let me see. Drumeldian was saying how Willie's death is similar to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which was in part to leading to World War I, and had a really cool post in episode 17 about and in the recap about the instance of that leading up to World War I. I can definitely see how Isayama drew influence from it, so that's pretty good to note. I'm going to skip that comment to later. Sacha Purvis noted that Reiner was saved by Marcel, by Ymir, and by Porko, who are all Jaw Titans. And I added to it saying, also, back in Door of Hope in episode 3 of season 4, Falco saved Reiner from killing himself. And Falco has ended up becoming the Jaw Titan. So, Reiner saved from the jaws of death by the jaws of death itself? Who knew, right? I also loved how Sasha pointed out that Porko, when Porko died, was not wearing the armband anymore. Porko was not wearing the armband and was instead wearing the Survey Corps Wings of Freedom on his back. And the jacket was starting to come off and he had a white shirt of like innocence underneath. And it's such a cool representation that in the moment of Porko's death, he was free. He had the knowledge from Marcel that his brother loved him, that he cared about him. He knows why his brother encouraged Reiner to become the Armored Titan instead of him. He had that knowledge. And he was able to sacrifice himself to save Falco, another younger brother who needed to be saved. And a lot of people commented that, and Sasha included, that he wanted Reiner to live because he knew Reiner cares about Falco and the others and that he'll do his best to take care of them. And he also wanted to get like a jab at Reiner. So it's like Porko gets to die. Porko dies like one of the best deaths, I think, in the series because he not only gets to like rib Reiner in the end and keep his trademark snarkiness and pride, but he also gets to do it in a way that represents like the freedom he has at the very end of it all. So how about that? Speaking of the Jaw Titan, Nathan Hardy had a really good note because a lot of people are dissing the Jaw Titan in these comments, but he's like, the Jaw Titan is a skirmisher, not like meant for one-on-one brawls with anybody like the female Titan or the armored Titan. Nathan was like, the Jaw Titan is a skirmisher and it's meant for hit and runs, terror raids, and blitzkriegs, not necessarily against brawlers like Annie or Reiner. And I'm like, that's a pretty good point. The scenario in which Porko had been put in throughout most of season 4 has not necessarily been playing up to his strengths. I think we see his strengths during the Fort Slava battle more than anything, but during a battle against Eren or the scouts necessarily, he's not really the best match. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Shubhan Vigas point out that Eren's talking about when Reiner was like, the worst person to have the power of the founder is you, Eren. And I was like, I probably have more to say about that after this episode, but I want to end on this note saying that Eren has according to Shubham, has a black and white view of the world with immense rage and passion. And someone with immense rage and passion is maybe not the best person to have this ability. Maybe not. We'll find out probably more after this episode, right? But I do like the idea, before we start, I want to bring up a few things. The idea that Shubham says that before the basement reveal, Eren seemed to have more faith in others, and noted in episode 12 of season 3 how people were different and that together we become more powerful. But after the memories are unlocked, and after it seems like future him kind of has a toll taken upon Eren and those memories get accessed, that he starts to like become more withdrawn and kind of wanting to do things for himself. And there's this idea of taking control and gaining freedom and sacrificing freedom. And we're going to talk about that after the reaction, because there's some things I want to talk about, this whole idea of freedom and Eren. But I want to wait till after this episode because I want to see how it all ties together. So I have lots more comments, but they need to come after this episode. The one thing I will say before we start, though, is that I was thinking about this on the way home from work. The idea that Eren, if we think of it this way, and I talked about this in the last episode, if Eren has been influencing the Attack Titan, and we saw, some of you noted in the crystal memories, one of those photos, I was trying to figure out who it was Kruger's memories. It was Kruger's memories when he was a kid. So if Eren has been influencing Grisha and influencing Kruger, and we'll talk about this later, could he have influenced all the way back to Ymir herself? Maya B has a comment about it, but I want to save it till after this. But I thought about that on the way home, Maya. I actually thought about this, and when I read your comment before starting this, I was like, oh yeah, we're on the same page. That, yeah, has Eren influenced all the way back to the start of this? How does that work? We'll talk about this. We're going to talk more about this whole future sight thing and how that all figures in, but I want to start this episode beforehand because I've almost talked for 20 minutes and we need to start. So, surprising no one. One of you was like, oh, you need to have wine chan, Romania. And I was like, maybe for episode 22 because that's the rule of 6. But I'm going to play it safe for this one. Keep my wits about me, right? Possibly. But in any case, I'm really excited. I've said the rule of 5, the rule of 6 with Isayama. Something crazy happens in the 5th and 6th episode of every season. Season 1, you had Tross where Eren got 8, and then you had the cruel world that the girl saw, which is about Mikasa. Season 2, you had Historia and Warrior. Season 3, you had the coup, and then you had Sin, which with this last episode that takes on a whole new meaning. And then in part 2, you had Hero and Midnight Sun. You had those. And then in last part 1, you had Declaration of War and Warhammer Titan. So some crazy episodes, right? Sure. But all right, we're not going to waste any more time. Talk for 20 minutes. We need to start this and see what happens. Again, Giblet Mortuary, thank you for the download. I appreciate it. But we're going to start this here in 3, 2, 1. And let's just see if we find out Eren's plan. Shall we? Let's go. It's a bit eerie when Eren gets on the intercom and just goes over the loudspeaker. Oh my God. Eren! Eren has officially become terrifying. I can't believe we've gone from season 1, where Eren was this screaming kid with like just all this rage and was just acting a fool, and now he's terrifying. And so I'm really surprised by this episode. It kind of fits in the vein of episode 5 for most seasons. I feel like next episode's gonna be redonkulous because Mall Maria has just collapsed, and we don't know about Cena or Rose yet. That's the thing. We don't know about Cena or Rose. We know about Maria for sure. Oh, buddy. So, have my fears been realized? Wow, okay. I feel very conflicted by this episode because we've talked about this in the recap. I we're talk about this plan and where all this is at. I'm not surprised that this is where Eren said what he said his plan was. I feel like there's something else to it, right? There's something else to it. I feel like there's something else to it that we don't know yet. I feel like there is something else to it that we're not sure about, right? And that Eren's still not telling us. I feel like there's something missing that's not been brought up. And Armin at the end, it seems like Armin is out loud trying to piece it all together and be like, wait, this was a plan. No, wait, what? Like, I feel like Armin is trying to piece it all together, and Armin is face to face with his doubts versus what his heart and his brain are telling him two different things. I feel like Armin's conflicted about that. And so we're going to go back through this. But yeah, so I'm really surprised that most of this flashback was with Ymir. And I have been waiting since season 2 ED. I've been waiting since season 2 episode 1 to see them damn 3 girls, Cena, Rose, and Maria. Ever since way back in season 2, I'm like, those 3 girls have to be related to the royalty. And they are. They're Ymir's original daughters. I'm very curious. This episode still leaves me with questions. And there's lots of stuff about Eren that the comments brought up that I feel like aren't answered in this. And so it's interesting. But, okay, so last episode, I spent a lot of time talking about the mechanics of the future sight, right? And we are going to touch base on that. But I really want to talk mainly about Ymir, about her whole deal, the thing that she touched, the source of all life, that thing that she touched that had the chain reaction. Okay, the devil of all earth. Okay, the supernatural being. Okay, cool. That was in the tree. We still don't, that thing's so mysterious. The founder of it all, right? So lots of callbacks to many things. This episode was I didn't feel confused during it all, but I felt conflicted because it was like we were getting this information. And I was like, okay, this is all adding up. And then I was like, oh my God. Okay. There's lots of things happening in this episode, and I feel like I need to rewatch it to sort it all out, right? But I do want to make note of a couple. I want to go ahead and address the comments before we dive into this, because I feel like some of these are going to tie into this, and a lot of these are relating back to episode 20. So I feel like I need to just go ahead and address them now. Zomban noted out, and I don't want any spoilers, first and foremost. I'm trying to go in this as blind as I can. And I realize, I know at this point from people on the Discord have talked and people on Patreon have talked that the anime is not going to end with this season. Surprise! It's not. There's going to be, I think Discord said there was like 9 chapters of the manga that were not adapted yet. And at this point, we've been doing like a chapter to chapter and a half per episode. Okay? So I don't think they'll make a movie, because 9 chapters worth of content, you only have 2 hours. If you figure out 20 minutes an episode, that's still only 6 episodes. If you cram it into 2 hours, it's still not enough, unless you made like a 3-hour movie, which I don't know if they would do that. So my theory would be to have a part 3. You've had part 1 of season 4. You've had part 2. Why not have a part 3 of the final season and end it there? Like do a limited 8 episode thing to tie it all together. Do 8 episodes. I mean, Game of Thrones, it was only a 10 episode run. Or do 10 episodes if you wanted to do the recaps like they've been doing and just stretch it out to 10. You could do that. You could do a 10 episode season. I could see that happening. A 9 to 10 episode season. Arcane just did 9 episodes for a season. I could see them doing it. And so I'm hoping that they'll do it in a TV format. I think if they do a movie, they're going to have to cut some stuff out. And that's been one of the things I've liked about this series, is that for the most part, I'm going to go back and read the manga, but for the most part, I've heard that most everything is pretty much adapted to it. And there's little bits and pieces and storylines cut out. But my point is that Zombin notes that the manga and the anime may end differently. And I was like, saying that there's been speculation that the manga and anime may end differently. And I don't want any manga spoilers, obviously. If that's the case, cool. I'm actually kind of excited if that is the case, because that would mean that Isayama, everybody's been saying in the Discord and on Patreon that Isayama's had more of a hand in this production. And I do like when the mangaka gets involved and they have like a hand in the production of the adaptation. I think it would be kind of cool if the anime ended a little... I'm torn, because part of me is like, I want it to end like the manga so that the people that read the manga can see the ending that they want to see adapted properly. But then another part of me is like, it'd be kind of cool as a mangaka if you could change the ending a little bit, so you'd have two different versions. It's kind of like pick your poison. Which ending do you like better, the manga ending or the anime ending? And go from there. So I don't know. I don't know what he'll end up doing and what the show will end up doing. That'll be interesting. But I have a feeling it's not going to end by the time we have this anime, and then I'm going to be stuck with all of you in limbo, waiting on whatever happens with the final chapters. I'll suffer with all of you, apparently. But I thought that was interesting. So I want to get that out of the way. Maya B said that Eren knew about the wine and Zeke needing to get away from Levi. So I've got a couple comments about Levi that I want to touch base on, because Levi's still MIA, and during all this madness, him and Hanji aren't in Shiganshina. So are they going to look up, and is Hanji going to look up with Levi and be like, well, shit, what's happening? Hanji and Levi are totally out of the loop on this. So there's that. That's going to be insanity. I can't even imagine. I don't even know if Levi's alive. We don't even know about Levi and Hanji. They've been absent this whole season so far. But there's this idea that that Eren knew about the wine and the fact that Zeke was left possibly with Levi. And that if Zeke showed up at Shiganshina, that means that Levi was incapacitated or taken out of the equation. And Maya noted that that was kind of sad, because Eren has always looked up to Levi, and he's always like looked up to Levi and saw him as a source of respect. And we don't get to see Eren's reaction to knowing if possibly Levi is dead. And obviously Eren's got a lot going on right now, so worrying about Levi is not on his plate. But that is kind of sad. And I was thinking of your comment, Maya. I was like, oh, that sucks, because we don't get to see his reaction. And Levi's not there, so I'm curious if Levi had been at Shiganshina where Eren was fighting, what would that have been like? What would the difference have been? We can think of a whole scenario of what if possibilities, but it's interesting to note that he's not there, and that Eren chose to go. And also Maya noted that Gabi could have aimed at Zeke. Gabi could have aimed the anti-Titan rifle at Zeke and killed him before Eren reached him. But she didn't, because she had a personal tie to Zeke. Even though she was mad at Zeke, even though she thought Zeke betrayed her, she still had that personal connection to Zeke, whereas she doesn't have a personal connection at all to Eren. So her shooting Eren makes much more sense, because she has no ties to Eren and he's basically a monster to her. Whereas Zeke, she does have a personal connection to. So there is that distinction. So I thought that was pretty neat. So, Dead Soon noted that Eren has a strong tie to his family and his home, which we see that on display with this master plan, and the idea that he hates the idea that these notions are tainted by politics, obligations, and war. So I noted in the comment after Dead Soon wrote that, I was like, yeah, in episode 20, Eren keeps looking back at Carla. If you rewatch the episode, he always looks at her. Like, she's the one that said he was special because he was born into this world. In Bystander, she tells Keith that. And so Eren's always seemed to have a very special connection with his mother, and has this tie to his family and his home. So we're going to put Eren up here. Old Eren. And I want to put that on here, that he does have this strong tie to the concept of his home and family, which relates to his plan, which we will detail over here when we get to it, right? Which we'll detail over there. So that's good to note, right? Sean Dunn, going back to Levi, Sean Dunn makes the comment that Levi, and I would argue Eren too, are the embodiment of the immortality trope. I think Levi especially. And Sean notes that while Levi is not necessarily immortal, Levi finds himself constantly surviving multiple situations, to the point where he loses all these people around him and starts demanding that his soldiers not die. So if you go back to the Warhammer Titan episode, Levi was like, whatever y'all do, don't die. And so Levi is all about keeping people alive because he's had all these people die around him. So I like the idea of the immortality trope applying to Levi, even though he's not technically immortal. And it kind of applies to Eren in a way too, oddly enough. I thought that was interesting. And so Vanna noted, is Eren a slave to himself? And we're going to talk about this. The idea of him forging his own path in episode 20. But this Eren, has he seen the future and his own end? That's the question. He clearly thinks... So we're going to tie to this, right? So Eren has said that to save Armin and Mikasa and everyone else, you have to go through with this, right? So, again, that's very interesting that Eren's like, we have to go through with this to save everybody. But we are not going to tell everybody. We're not going to communicate this plan with them, right? Not going to communicate to them this plan because they probably won't like it. But I like the idea here that is Eren like Ymir a slave to themselves? Right? And so we'll talk about Ymir over here. Because I think Ymir is different than Eren, but we'll talk about this. But the idea that Ymir... So Eren, and this concept that Eren is not free. And several of you in episode 20 have commented about this, that Eren is not free. And I totally agree. We've talked about this in the recap. That Eren is not free, but it's not for the reasons in the recap that I thought, right? It's gotten expanded upon a lot more than this. But there's the idea... some dude, and others have pointed throughout this, and I'm going to tie back to this idea here of Eren not being free. Some dude notes that Grisha watching Eren's memories, which are of him, so it all loops around. And I am going to talk about this when we get to it, about Eren using Carla, that whole thing. We're going to tie back around to that. But the weird pianist questions with this whole situation of episode 20, and I was waiting to see if we'd get an answer to the question, but it's not popped up yet, of is there free will in Attack on Titan? Not for Eren, I don't think. It's the idea, the weird pianist points out about Eren not being free, in that does Eren believe that Eren's fate is predetermined by himself, right? That leads to the question of, has Eren seen his death? Has Eren seen his death? That's a big question. I don't want the answer to it, obviously, because it's spoilers. But I'm in the back of my head, I'm thinking, okay, has Eren seen his own death? And he's just going through the motions, leading him to that point where he can pass on. And it kind of goes back to the OP lyrics from part 1. The idea of you've got stuff to do before you sleep. It ties back to Robert Frost. I have miles to go before I sleep. And in his poetry. But has Eren seen his own death? Has he seen the end? And it's all going to come full circle, right? Space Monkey kind of notes, too, the idea of the sins of the father motif. And does that apply? Kruger is introduced. And yeah, that's where we're going to tie back to this. The idea of, Grisha. Grisha, we have this whole sins of the father motif, right? And Space Monkey was talking about that this whole idea that Eren has influenced Grisha so much. The idea of, well, does it kind of fly in the face and diminish the idea of the sins of the father and what Grisha had said? But it's interesting. This kind of ties to Maya B's comment as well. I'm kind of all over the place with these comments, so I apologize, but I want to get them out of the way before we go through the episode proper. But the idea of, did Eren cause his own birth? Because if you think about it, if Eren influenced Kruger, because Kruger had that idea of Mikasa and Armin saving them, he told that to Grisha, which was influenced by Eren. So did Eren influence Kruger? Because Kruger, if you think back, Kruger introduced Grisha to Dinah, right? And that's how Zeke came about. So did Eren cause Zeke to be born? Did Eren cause himself to be born? Because Kruger tells Grisha up on the wall, he's like, you need to go and find someone to love, start a family, have Eren. If you don't do this, none of this is going to come into play. So it's the idea of, did Eren influence his own birth, right? Right? Did Eren influence his own birth? Or rather, at the end of the day, going back to this idea of free will, this idea, was it the will of, I'm going to say, the devil of all earth, of DAE? Because it doesn't have a name. It's the source of life itself, a god, a deity, this weird plankton-looking centipede thing that Eren has become. We're going to just call it the devil of all earth. I'm going to call it the devil of all earth because it's something easy for me to remember. But y'all know what I'm talking about. But is it the will of that? Is it the idea that that is the will? Because that went to Ymir herself. So, and that became part of Ymir's will herself too. My question with Ymir, and I guess we'll tie back to Ymir over here, is we're going to have like a little thing about Ymir right here. So obviously we have with Ymir's backstory that she had the 3 daughters, and we'll touch on that. The 3 daughters, Rose and Sina and Maria. We'll touch on them. But the mythos was that she split into 9 spirits, right? That was the legend. The legend was that when Ymir died after 13 years, she split into 9 spirits, and they inhabited and became the Titans. But I don't think that's true anymore, right? I think that through the cannibalism that happens in this show that the king grossly made his daughters do, it could be that each of these 3 daughters had 3 kids of their own, right? That they had 3 kids. That would be 9, right? And those kids were the 9. Were the 9 Titan shifters. And from there, from that moment, then they figured out, okay, well, we take the spinal fluid. What if we gave it to other Eldians? What if we did that? And from there, they just multiplied and just got crazy, right? So I need to go back through the episode to kind of confirm that, but I'm guessing that's where we got the whole 9 Titan shifters from, just right off the bat. But yeah, we need to go through this episode. But I want to get those comments out of the way before we start. But yeah, those are all interesting comments. So let's go back through this episode. So I like that we touched back on Grisha destroying Frida and squashing the other kids and letting Reiss go. And someone noted on, it was a funny meme shared on Twitter today, but they were noting that it was a little screenshot of Historia back from the 3rd season. She was like, oh, don't worry, Eren. It's not your fault my family died. It was your father's fault. Well, was it? Was it your father's fault? Nope. Nope, because it's the weirdest thing. Because, yeah, Grisha did kill the Reiss family, except for Rod, right? But that was because of what Eren told him to do, right? Eren told him to do it. He told him to go through with it. So, yeah, oh my gosh. And it's so brutal. Like, the scene wasn't that brutal, I think, in season 3, but no, in this one, it's pretty brutal. And it just shows their skeleton falling out of his mouth, and it just shows them all being crushed. And he just squeezed Ulrich until he like died, and then we cut back to poor Grisha. And Grisha, yeah, just him being, why won't you show me everything? The wall being destroyed the day it happens. Is Carla safe? I wanted to go back to that because that was the other note that some dude pointed out. Some dude had noted this, and I wanted to tie back. This was the last comment here. But it's a little sinister if you think about it. And I agree, it's a little sinister that Eren did not show Grisha that Carla was dead. Because at this point in the episode, at this point in chronologically, as Grisha's killing the Reiss family, Carla is dead. Carla's already dead at this point, right? Carla's dead. And Eren does not tell Grisha that. He conveniently leaves that out of his memories at the moment. He doesn't show him that memory. He doesn't show him the fact that she's dead. And so Grisha goes through with it because it's clear that Grisha does not like Eren at this point. He's terrified of him. He thinks that what he's going to do is insane and going to, be terrible. And he tries to tell Zeke that, but he doesn't know what's happened to Carla, so he still goes along with it. And he goes through with killing the Reiss family because he thinks, well, maybe Carla's safe. And then we cut to the events of Bystander, where Grisha asks Eren about Carla, and Eren, kid Eren, not future Eren, but kid Eren that doesn't know any different, says, oh, our mother was killed. And some dude was like, maybe at that moment, Grisha was just like Fushiguro from Jujutsu Kaisen and was like, screw it. We're just going to go along with it. We've gone this far. I don't know, but I think that that's a little sinister that information is withheld from Grisha. Just a little bit. So yeah. And Eren very much, I think that everybody has argued this entire season. There's been so many people argue in the comments. They're like, Eren's not an antagonist, he's the protagonist, which yes, he is. But they're like, Eren's not the villain. In this episode, he's kind of framed like it. I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that. Eren is very much framed as villainous in this episode. From like all the shots of him, he's like, I never imagined it would be so terrible. From Grisha's perspective to Zeke, he's like, what's about to happen is awful and terrifying. And but he's not seen everything. He says that what he's seen in the future is terrible, but he's not seen the walls fall. He's not seen the day that it happens. So did he see Liberio? Is what he saw in the future Liberio maybe? And he thinks, oh, that's terrible because it's happening in my hometown. I hadn't thought of that. Maybe what Grisha is referring to, because Grisha hasn't seen the walls collapse as we see at the end of this episode. He's not seen the day that it happens, the day that whatever Eren's planning to do occurs. So is the terrible things he's seen that Eren's shown him, is that from Liberio maybe? And he's just seen his hometown be destroyed and that's what he's freaked out about? I don't know. It doesn't quite match up. But he definitely does not want Eren to succeed. And then that face, that face of that like angry, that pure rage, it's the same face that Ymir makes later on, which is fascinating. It's just fascinating. And let me say, for the record, Zeke and Grisha, I've commented this whole season that Eren looks a lot like Grisha. He does. The older Eren gets, the more he looks like his father. But Eren and Grisha do not act similar. I was mistaken in Soul Salvation. I was like, man, Eren acts a lot like Grisha. Yeah, kind of, but Zeke and Grisha, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Zeke and Grisha are very similar. They're very openly emotional characters. Eren internalizes all of his emotion. He lets it out. It bottles up until it can't go anymore, and then he just lets it burst out from him. But Eren internalizes a lot of emotion, and you just see it bubble to the surface, and it's terrifying, but he keeps a lot of it inside. Zeke and Grisha are extremely emotional characters. A lot of you were commenting with episode 19. You were like, Zeke didn't want to go through with the scream after Colt's plea, and he didn't want to hurt Falco, and he didn't want to have to order Falco to hurt Reiner necessarily, but he did it because it was moving forward. It's what he felt he had to do, whether you agree with it or disagree with it. But he's very emotional about it. Like, he shows remorse. He shows that he's not... And rewatching while I was editing, I gave Zeke a hard time in episode 19, but when I was editing, I was like, yeah, Zeke does look like he's pained that he has to do this. And it's a lot like Grisha in episode 20. It's a lot like Grisha here. He's showing this open emotion, like it's just pouring out of him. And you can argue a lot of things like, okay, Grisha, well, here's X, Y, and Z, and you can argue whether or not you feel sympathy for him or not, but him and Zeke are very, very similar. And Eren just standing there in the shadows. Oh. And so then we go back to the coordinate. We go back to Ymir in the dirt. And so we're back to the episode proper. And then Eren... Now, here's the thing. Eren says we still haven't seen the part where I eat him. Like... it's almost a jab to Zeke. Eren's like, oh, you wanted me to see all these aspects of my dad, right? Well, we haven't gotten to the end of my dad yet. You want to go back and look at that? Oh my gosh. And Zeke's like, I don't want to see any more of that. Like, it's just, Eren's mocking him, right? And Zeke's saying, did you push father into fighting the king of the walls and the world? Yes. yes, he did. Mm-hmm. And Eren's like, he's like, if the attack titan really has the power to transcend time, then you could show him just the memories which suited you to alter the past. So that's interesting. So Zeke is suggesting, I'm going to put Zeke up here. So Zeke is like, I don't understand, Eren. You could have shown him anything. You could have shown him just the memories that you wanted so that he could alter the past. So if you didn't want him to fight, you know, because you could argue a lot of these horrible things that happened to Eren maybe could have been avoided, but I don't think so. Zeke is arguing that why did you encourage the past to go this way? Why did you do this? And that is a question that we haven't had answered. Even though we get Eren's plan by the end of this, even though we get that, it's still, Eren's still mysterious. There's still some mystery about him. There's something not said. And I'm hoping there's something not said. I'm hoping that this isn't Isayama putting all the cards on the table. I feel like there's something else that's still being kept in the dark, and we're not entirely sure about it. And maybe Eren's not sure about it. But again, has Eren seen his own death? Does he know what's going to happen to him in the end? And so he wants it. So is he just going through with it that way? I'm not sure. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, and Eren doesn't answer him. He's like, Father, Grisha hesitated to carry out the restorationist mission. He knew he couldn't use the Founding Titan's powers even if he stole it. So, also for the record, this suggestive shot of Zeke just like the Zeke fan service. Did we ask for this? The Zeke fans are probably like, like, yes, we are not going to complain about this at all. But he said he knew he couldn't use the Founding Titan powers even if he stole it. Like, he was aware of that. Except he did steal it, and he entrusted it to you. So, because of what he'd seen in the future. So, something in the future, something you showed him. And so, and Eren doesn't let him finish. So, Grisha, in the moment, something else was shown to Grisha that we've not... That's the kicker, right? What else was shown to Grisha? There's something else missing, damn it. That has to be tied to it, right? Something is missing. There's at least one more memory we haven't seen. There's one more memory of Grisha and Eren that we haven't seen, and it's something near his death, damn it. I want to go back and watch Bystander so bad now because I'm like, did I miss something? Is there something? Now I want to go back and rewatch all these moments with Grisha and Eren because I'm like, did I miss something? So clearly I think that there is something that is tied to a mystery with a memory that Grisha saw that made him, yeah. Because Zeke is right. He's like, Grisha knew he couldn't use the power of the Founder. And so he knew that you couldn't use it if he gave it to you. So why did he do it anyway? Just because you told him? Why would he do that? And so I think Eren's going to answer the question here in a second in the episode, but I think that there's something missing. There is one more scene that we've not seen yet that Eren, I don't know what's going to happen to Zeke at this point. Is Zeke back to the present? We cut back to the present. So is Zeke in the present now? Is he going to die? Is somebody going to step on him and shoot him and get crushed? What's going to happen to Zeke? I don't know. But Eren says, I'm grateful, brother. This was only possible because you brought me into my dad's memories. Yeah, last episode, if Zeke hadn't, it all comes full circle. If Zeke hadn't led Eren to the coordinate, thinking that he was going to use Eren to sterilize all the Eldians, then we wouldn't have gotten to this point. So technically, again, Zeke, underestimating and being a self-fulfilling prophecy, Zeke caused most of this, right? So Zeke is the reason that Eren was able to access those memories. And yeah, this whole thing is kind of also part of Zeke's fault too. And then we cut back to Zeke with the shocked Pikachu face, saying he said things wouldn't go my way, that only you would get what you want. Because he's seen the future. Because he showed him. He's like, yeah, I saw it 4 years ago. I saw my own future through Dad's memories. And so that is the face that Ymir makes, that Eren makes too, it's like anger and fury and terror. And it almost looks like too, like a corpse, Like when a corpse, like when their lips start to go back and you're like you start to see the teeth, like it looks like a corpse too. But yeah, so God, in that moment, so basically since season 3, since season 3, episode, was that 21 or 22? Since season 3, 22, Eren has known what was going to happen. Okay, Eren has known the future. So it wasn't necessarily when he went to the basement. It wasn't necessarily that moment. But it was after that. It was after that he started to change because he'd seen the future. He's known the future since that point, and it's all been leading up to. And so since that moment, everything he's done since the end of season 3 has been leading to this because he knows that's where he had to go. And it all ties to the idea of him moving forward. It ties to the idea that he's moved forward to accomplish his goal. Okay. All right. But and maybe that's why again, we're going to talk about distancing Mikasa and Armin at the end of all this. But he says, what a sight it was. Whatever he's seen. But he looks sad now. He doesn't look happy about it. He looks kind of like melancholy, right? So it's weird. His face is weird. He looks melancholy, but he also looks satisfied and also sad. So Eren's scene towards the end, which we'll talk about this idea of free will. Eren's scene towards the end. And then Zeke gets mad. Zeke's like, excuse me, no. And then he's like, make Eldians unable to reproduce anymore. So he's like, I'm done. Like, nope, gonna tell you what to do because I'm of royal blood. And then at this moment, Eren's like, now wait a minute. And he's saying the coordinate. He's like, he said, Grisha told me to please stop Eren. Yeah. And he's saying he regretted listening to you. Oh, that face that Eren makes. Oh, and maybe that's why Eren looks back. There's a moment in episode 20 where Eren looks back at Grisha holding him as a baby. I don't think Eren bores any ill will towards Carla because that's his mom and she's the one that brought him into this world. But there's a look that he gives at the end of episode 20 in that end of that scene where he looks kind of like not angry at Grisha, but maybe like agitated. And I wonder if it's him in the future realizing that Grisha was like, nope, my kid's gonna do something crazy. Maybe you should stop him, Zeke. And then, but this whole scene, where he like he says, I don't know what sort of future you saw through father's memories. But you didn't see everything, right? For example, you didn't know you couldn't use the founder's power here. Interesting. Okay, so he's just seeing bits and pieces. You're as powerless as ever. Oh, that shot of him like wringing, like just cutting his hand off. And honestly, Kaji's voice actor, where he just scrapes the hand through the bars like Kaji's voice actor and like taking his thumbs off. Oh my God, it's gruesome. It's just gruesome. And it's the skin, like taking the skin off too. Nope. Like it just peeled it. It just peeled it. And he just runs off towards her. Oh my God. And he says, it's no use, Eren. Once Ymir has begun to move, she can't be stopped. And it's kind of like the Titans. No one in this world can stop her. Oh, that's such a, Tying it to Eren, though. Tying it to Eren. The idea that once she starts to move, she can't be stopped. There's something interesting with that because it ties to the idea of the attack titan, right? The attack titan in Eren. It ties to this idea that once something is set into motion, it can't be stopped. And it's kind of grim in a way too, because you could tie that to the wheel, the idea of the wheel and the cycle of violence. And that may tie to the fact that Eren, unless it's destroyed, right? Unless you destroy it, unless it's destroyed, then then the cycle is going to keep going. So maybe that's the idea that once she starts to move, she can't be stopped. So tying to the attack titan, tying to Eren, like once Eren's story started, you started this story, Grisha. Once the story started, it can't be stopped. It has to go. And that kind of ties to the fact of Eren being a slave, a lot like Ymir. The idea that he's like, once this thing has been set into motion, we can't stop it. It's going to just keep going until it ends, right? And so unless we destroy the wheel in Eren's mind, by Eren and Zeke's logic in this scene, unless we destroy the wheel, it's just going to keep going. We can't stop it. I do like the comparisons of Eren and Ymir in this. You have the comparisons of Eren and Ymir. You have the comparisons of Ymir and the Titans and the rumbling. Once they start, they can't be stopped. There's that idea. But that gets kind of complicated by what Eren does with Ymir later, and we'll get to that. That gets kind of complicated with all of that. So, but him going after her, and then we cut to the OP. Okay. And then we cut back to Historia and Frida. And for a second, I'm like, Frida does not have the attack titan. Frida just has the founder. So Frida really is not influenced by Eren's memories at all. Really. Not really. Eren intakes Frida when he consumes Grisha, but Frida is not influenced by Eren, and I think that's important to note, that she is her own person in all of this, but she is the founder, so she has the founder in her instead of Eren's will influencing Grisha, it's the founder's will influencing Frida. But again, the idea of being ladylike, it means being a lot like this girl right here, which is Ymir. So Ymir is the one described as ladylike. She's ladylike and ideal. Which we'll go back to that, the idea of her being ladylike and ideal, as we see her next to the titan that looks like the jaw titan. I think that's curious. We have the jaw titan, her giving the apple to the jaw titan, the power of the titans to that one. I find it curious that it seems like it's the jaw titan that's modeled after. Again, I'm wondering what Gabi and Falco's role in this story will be. And I don't want to be spoiled, but Falco is now the jaw titan. And that seems like it's tied a lot with sacrifice. But you have Freckled Ymir, who is tied to Historia. So I feel like it's saying something of what Falco's going to do in this story. We just don't know yet. So I feel like there's something there. It's just not been stretched out and brought to the surface yet. I love, though, that in this flashback, everything is muted. Like all the people are muted. We don't see their eyes. It's just kind of gray and overcast. And everything is just kind of just abysmal. It reminds me a lot of the Edie from season 2. And then, so we have the story of Ymir. Finally, we get her backstory in all of this. And she just seems like just a normal person. She was just a kid fetching water. And then from that, their village is taken over by what looks like, I don't think it's Marley though, but they're all taken as slaves or killed, including her, the world full of pain and suffering. The cruel world. And it shows people's tongues being cut out. So you should live in a way. And then they push her forward, but nothing happens to her. She doesn't die. I thought she died. I thought in this moment that she was going to get burned alive. I thought that because we cut to the ash burning all the buildings, but she doesn't die. That's the interesting part. And the transition from the ash to the flower petals. It's so good. And it's just falling down like the ash in the air. It's so good. But yeah, the flower petals falling at her feet. And her just carrying water still. And saying to be helpful and loved by everybody. You should strive to be like that. So interesting. So we have the ideal to be helpful and loved by all, and to be kind. We're gonna tie back to the idea of kindness, because what it reminds me of is when Mikasa was telling Eren, like, no, you gave me the scarf, you wrapped it around me, and you did it to protect me, and it was because you were kind. And that's when Eren shuts her up. That's when he's like, no. And I wonder in that moment if he's connecting back to Ymir, and because the whole kindness and everything, it's not framed in a positive light in this flashback because she's kind and she gets the brunt of everything. We'll talk about this, but it's not framed in the best light. And I wonder if that's why Eren reacted that way around Mikasa to it. So we have this guy and he's clearly getting married to this girl, and Ymir looks at him like maybe she's jealous. I don't know, like maybe she's jealous of the fact that he married her, or she sees him like loving her, or because we don't know, but they seem to be like, she doesn't seem to be upset that she's kissing that man that's the king. So it doesn't seem like she's being forced, but she might be. But it seems like Ymir is just, I don't know if Ymir's jealous in that moment of the woman or if she is thinking about that relationship. I'm not sure. But somebody lets a pig escape. The simplest thing. A pig. And he says, if nobody fesses up, every one of you loses an eye. So, and it's this guy. He's like, slaves have no need for two. Okay. And so they all point the finger at her. She's the scapegoat. She's the one they point to. And it's funny. She's just a kind person who didn't do anything wrong. She was just being a nice person, just going about her day. And she gets called out for letting the pig out. And I don't think she did, but she gets called out for doing it. He says, you're the one who let it escape. But because she's kind, and because I love that she looks around at all of them and they all look at her. And it's kind of like Ymir. It's kind of like Freckled Ymir, right? Because in Freckled Ymir, they said, who of you is responsible? And they were like, well, you're claiming to be the daughter of royalty. You're responsible. And the people the people that were in the cult were kind of like, oh, don't say anything. And she takes the fall for it, just like the original Ymir did. She says it was her. And she lies, right? And that's kind of what Ymir does here. She sacrifices herself and does the noble thing and says it's her that let the pig out when we know it's a lie. But she does it to protect the other people, even though they all blamed her. And even though they all scapegoated her and lied, she takes the fall for it. And he's like, okay, very well. Then you are free. But freedom is not what you think it is, right? So the king sets her free after she sacrifices herself. After she sacrifices herself to save the others. He sets her free. But the freedom that she gets is not at all what it sounds like. The freedom is that they hunt and kill her. They hunt and try to kill her with the arrows and everything. And it's kind of, you could tie it maybe to the pure titans, like they're set free on Paradise and then they're hunted down and killed by the people there. But she has these arrows. She has one arrow in her shoulder and she has an arrow in her leg. And she's been clearly hit in the eye because her eye was bleeding. And they hunt her down, and then she falls and goes down the hill. And when that dog was on the ground, I thought the dog was like eating her alive. And again, I was like, oh my God, what's happening? But then we see the blood on the daisy, which is like in the ED, right? In the ED where Eren's knife has the blood and it falls on the flower too. Very similar. And the daisy, it's like something pure that's been tainted by violence, right? And that's exactly what Ymir is. She's something pure, like this pure, wholesome person that didn't do anything wrong. And she just gets caught up in the cycle of violence. And it is a cruel world. Like what they do to her isn't fair. And she's like, I didn't deserve any of this. I was just trying to be nice and helpful. And this is what I get in return. So it's like, yeah, the blood on the flower. And then her just crying. And the fact that we don't see her eye until the very end, that she's just sitting there crying, and it's just out of the one eye because the other eye is ruined. And then we see the giant tree, this tree of life stretching above all things with the cave inside. Like there's definitely a supernatural element to all of this. Like the tree is clearly bigger than every other tree there and has all these arching branches and everything and looks like the coordinate. It looks like the tree that it's like Alice in Wonderland. There's such a cool supernatural element to it. It reminds me of Alice in Wonderland a lot because she like goes inside the tree trunk and then slips down into Wonderland. But it's this idea that she falls down to the bottom of the tree into the water, and she can't swim. That's the thing. She cannot swim because it makes sense. She grew up in this world where that wasn't a necessity. So she's drowning. And I wanted to comment in the reaction that as she's drowning, it reminded me of Historia falling in the water. It reminded me of Mikasa, tying back to those two things. Like just all that symbolically representing. And then, yeah, she falls basically to drown. And she's not even trying to like hold her breath or anything. She's just falling into the abyss. And at the bottom of the water is this thing that looks like a centipede, but it's got like the tentacles and like all going throughout it. The source of all life and matter. It's this creature. And it touches her. I want to see, did it touch her nape? That's what I want to see. It connects itself to her, right? And then when the one tentacle touches her nape, that's when the whole Titan transformation happens. And it's kind of like her rising up, like the spine and everything. It's like the monster, like the creature itself, but she has like the skeletal like face. Her face isn't formed. The rib cage is like forcing around her. It's kind of weird. It reminds me a lot in that form where she's like part skeleton, part muscle, and you see like the rib cage and everything and the head thrown back. It reminds me of Dinah when Dinah transforms into the smiling Titan in that day when she looks up at Grisha and she's like has her head thrown back. It reminds me of that, honestly. I want to take a picture of that. I want to take a picture of old Ymir Fritz in the scary Titan form. But yeah, that's her touching it is what causes her to transform. Interesting. And then, of course, you've done well, my slave Ymir. Like, okay, and so we cut back that it's been a while. Like, she basically was being used against the army she's basically used against the army by the king to do whatever he wanted because she's kind and she does what people says, right? And this line, you've built roads, cultivated the wilds, and bridged mountains. I tied back to before we started this, but the idea that, yeah, it's just like Grisha told the restorationists. That's exactly what the scroll said. She did do all of those things, just like he said, only the means in which she did them were the problem. She did them through basically like the Roman expansion of the Roman Empire, just basically taking them over and oppressing them. And she's grown up. You can see that she's older here. My tribe Eldia has grown quite large. And she like bows her head to serve him. As a reward, I shall give you my seed. Shouldn't be surprised. It's a medieval story. A lot of medieval story have situations like this. And he still has the ring on. So we can assume that maybe the queen is gone. We don't know. In the name of Fritz, annihilate the vile people of Marley. And it shows her like still with the rib cage and the skeletal hand. Like she just looks frightening, right? And she just attacks them all. And we see the Marleyan flag with the shell. And the head. So that begs the question that at some point, and we see the king and all the people are cheering. And then she's with him. Yep. And then, God, the parallels to Historia. Oh my gosh, the parallels to Historia as the soldiers marching on. Right? Parallels to Historia. And the sad thing is that she's just used. Ymir is just used in the same way that Historia is planning to be used, right? Is just used. There's no actual love, right? When she looked at him with that other woman, he was marrying her because he wanted to marry her. It didn't seem like there was any reason behind it. He's just with Historia because he sees her as something powerful and he wants to try to recreate that power. So of course she just does it because she's told to. It's very frustrating, right? And so we see this whole expansion of the Eldian Empire. We see it happening, and we see her have these 3 girls, right? The 3 daughters. And she looks at her child, but she's not filled with like any, of course she wouldn't be filled with happiness necessarily because of the situation in which she had this child, but she's not filled with anger. It just shows her kind of in awe of all of them. That she's just kind of in awe that she's had this child. And then we just keep seeing her transform, and she never changes form. It's like all of them put together and her just destroying them. And then we see her with, and she just looks kind of distant. Like she never looks different in any of these scenarios. She looks different in all of them. Like looking at her kid just like this, her mouth's open. She's just like, here's this kid. It's very numbing. And the kids don't seem to know any different, but it shows them building the roads. The parallels with the Roman Empire are very apparent, even down to like the aqueducts and things like that. It's interesting. And even like the columns and everything it just looks like ancient Rome, and shows her with the 3 kids. And then of course there's all these women outfitting the king, which is interesting. And it shows them all outfitting him, and then she's the one with the 3 children, right? It's like an interesting parallel that he surrounds himself with all these women, and she just is used. It's very sad. And he's gotten quite older. So we establish in this that she only lives 13 years after her term. So he ages considerably in those 13 years, which if you think it's back in like medieval times, people aged quickly because you didn't have modern medicine, things like that. And we don't know how old he was. He could have been in his late 50s for all we know when he first got with Ymir. He could have been in his late 50s and now he's in his late 60s. We don't know for sure. But he's clearly aged, right? And so we see the Empire. We see the Empire, and the old queen is nowhere in sight. But he has like all these rings on his hand. He has 6 rings on his one hand, which is interesting. And she has 3 rings on each side, which is for 6 too, which is interesting as well. And then we see the 3 daughters, right? And then the one soldier that we see grabs a spear. And it's almost like, it's like the story of Hellos, right? The story of Hellos that speared the devil of all earth. When Willie Tybur told that story that they fabricated a hero of Marley, it seemed like this guy went to stab the king. But it's interesting. He went to throw the javelin at the king. I'm assuming at his head because he had a breastplate on of armor. So if you threw the spear at the king's chest, it would have done nothing. It was just, he had armor on. He was aiming for his head, and Ymir jumped in the way to save him. But it's funny that there's those parallels to the hero of Marley story, because you have the hero of Marley with the spear spearing the devil of all earth's head, which looks like the king from the original King Fritz. It looks like him. It's molded kind of in the same way, but it spears her instead. That's interesting. That connection's interesting, because this clearly was way before that. And they kill him, but she jumps to save him instead. And she gets speared through the heart. And dies. And I like that in this moment, the tragedy in all this is that she, despite the fact that this man essentially raped her 3 times, essentially, the fact that all of that happened to her, despite the fact that she just shucked herself in front of him to take the spear for him, to save him, when she had no reason to, she could have let him die. The fact that despite her sacrificing herself to save him, he still did not care. Yeah, the original King Fritz, he did not show, he doesn't show like he's surprised, but then he doesn't show like sadness at her or like concern. She's sitting there like, I'm dying. And he's like, what are you doing? Get up. He's like, I know you won't die from a mere spear, my slave Ymir. Like, even after all of that, after everything she'd done for him, he still called Ymir a slave. That's all she was to him. And here's the thing. We don't know how old these girls are, but we could assume that maybe the one girl's 13. And I don't know. Maybe that was... Because here's the thing. He says, I know you won't die from a mere spear. But has anybody tried to kill her when she wasn't in Titan form? We don't know that. So for all we know, he just thought that since she could turn into this incredible Titan, this godlike figure, that she must have been immortal. But that's not the case. As Eren tells later, he's like, you're just a person. She was just a person who got imbued with this special ability. Right? That was the point. So yeah. And then, but she does die. And then the last thing she sees is the daisy with the blood. And we've established that daisies are symbols of fertility. So the blood on it is kind of like a symbolic thing that as long as her blood passes on, the blood of the Titans will as well. It's like a little symbolism of that. And then God, she finds herself in the paths. And she finds herself where the coordinate is. So it's almost like because she connected to the devil of all earth, or this spiritual being, because it connected her to her, that once she died, maybe this was her. Is it purgatory? Is it heaven? Is it hell? We don't know. Is it just this other realm that she exists in now that she's passed because she connected with the devil of all earth and she didn't have any other family or friends? She was all by herself to begin with. It seems like she was all alone from the start, because it seemed like she was singled out by everybody in the village. No one offered to support her when they used her as a scapegoat. So it seemed like maybe the older woman that at the beginning we saw with her and the water, maybe the older woman was like maybe family, but she dies like before all of this even happens. So she was all by herself. She didn't have anybody to support her. And so it seems like she ends up in this land of the coordinate all alone. And she's stuck there for oblivion. For eternity. And then this part, we go back to the ED for season 2, and I was like, man, we see the king cutting up something and feeding it to the girls. But the funny thing is that the picture that Isayama shows us, it looked like a king. In the image, it looked like a king getting cut up and eaten and fed to the girls. So I thought it was the original King Fritz getting fed to his daughters. But it was a little bit of a misdirect on Isayama's part. It was actually Ymir getting cut up. God, this is disturbing. Getting cut up into different bowls. Feast my daughters, whatever it takes. Ymir's power must be carried on. And he made them all sit there. Every last piece of Ymir's body. Maria, Rose, Sina. He made all of the girls eat their mother. Oh my God. And she looks and sees the coordinate branch out into 3 parts for each of them. Okay. So we can assume that maybe the inside that's the connector. Because yeah, the tree started out just being this one force that Ymir was inside. And then it branches out in 3 directions for the 3 daughters. And now it's branched out into all sorts of things because it's all kept going, right? Yep. Oh my gosh, that's such a cool thing that it branched out. And it makes like a cross, like the symbolism. Oh my gosh. So the question is, if Ymir goes into the coordinate, if she goes into that, does she reunite with her daughters and all the other people that have died that are part of that? Does she reunite with them, or is she stuck outside of it? That sucks if she's stuck outside of it. It seems like she comes from the coordinate and goes back and forth. So is she able to interact with her daughters? Is it like a purgatory, like a heaven thing where she sees them in the afterlife? Or is she just doomed to be there without ever seeing them again? Because even though she didn't seem happy necessarily about having these 3 girls, they were still her daughters. So I wonder if she wants to see them again. I don't know. But then, yeah, the king dies and tells the daughters to bear children and multiply. That's their duty. Ymir's blood must be passed on. And it's all the hands grabbing at the baby. All the hands. Just like, it's crazy. There's the hand symbolism with all the Eldians, all the Survey Corps members were grabbing for the wine. All the people grabbing for the baby. Oh, Ymir's blood must be passed on. And then you see her standing in front of the coordinate as it's like as it's multiplied. If my daughters die, feed their spines to my grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And that's when we see a shot. So we see different Titans. We see the one that looks like the jaw. We see one down there. We see the female Titan, that's 3. We see an arm. We see Attack Titan 4. We see the Warhammer 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. We see the grandchildren. So again, I think they each had 3 kids, 3 grandchildren, this 9 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And she's just carrying water back and forth to make the Titans. And she keeps carrying, and it just looks like she's just suffering. She's just suffering, sculpting these Titans over and over again. And because the coordinate is a place where time passes both instantly and infinitely, she can take millennia to build these Titans, and it only seems like a second. God, it's torture. Like, she just does that over and over again, building the Colossal Titan, building these other Titans, and spilling the water. And it shows her like falling, like she spills the water, but she keeps on going. And you could argue that the Colossal Titans that she built was the founder telling her to. Even after I pass, Eldia will dominate the lands with its monstrosities. Mm-hmm. And it shows her keeping on doing it. And our Titans shall reign supreme for eternity. And it just shows her building them making the walls over and over again and building the feet. I mean, girls win in all the sand sculpting contests. I'm just saying. Girls win in all the contests. But that's so insane. But yeah, as long as there's Titan blood and as long as Ymir is stuck there, she's going to have to keep doing this over and over again. That as long as Ymir and the coordinate exist, as long as they exist, then she has to keep building Titans. It's kind of crazy. So we're going to tie that to what Eren tells her after all this, that they'll reign supreme for eternity. Until the world's end. Until the world's end for eternity. I like that there is this comment, until the world's end. Okay. Ugh. And then Eren says, I'll end it. As he's like got his arm around her. I'll put an end to this world. Give me your strength. And just him sitting there hugging her. Him saying, you're not a slave. You're not a god. You're just a person. And I agree with Eren on that. Yes. She is just a person. Right? And he's saying you are free. You're not a deity. You're not a slave. You're not a devil. You're just a person. You were just human, and this just happened to you, and you didn't know what was going to happen when it did. And him just, like, I like that he's on his knees, like, holding her. He's like, you don't have to bow to anyone. You can decide, because you were born into this world, you don't have to listen to anybody. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to be bound by any constructs of society, by anything. You decide what you want to do with your life. If you want to decide to be a slave, fine. If you want to decide to do this or that, fine. But it's your decision, right? God. I do like when Eren tells her this. He's like, it's your choice. You get to choose. Do you want to stay here for eternity, or should I end this? So, yeah, okay. Do you want to stay here for eternity, or should I end this? And then Zeke's like, no, stop it, Eren. No, I don't want you to stop her from being a slave. No. And he's like, what's the big idea? What are you doing? And then he's like, Ymir, obey my command. And yeah, Zeke's saying, he says, I said me. And he said, were you the one who led me here? And he's like, do it now, Ymir. You've been waiting this whole time. And he's like, I'm a descendant of royal blood. Like that does that back and forth. So Eren's saying that she led him here. Eren's like, he says basically Ymir led him to her. That he led him to her, because once she starts to move, she can't be stopped. And Zeke trying to use that whole royal blood. He says, you've been waiting for 2,000 years for someone. Someone who, and here's the thing about it all. That, yeah, Ymir leading Eren to her. Eren is not of royal blood. She shouldn't have to listen to Eren, right? Eren could only be there because of Zeke, right? Because he needed somebody with royal blood. So yeah, this whole thing, basically, I'm going to have to flip Whiteboard Kun over. That shouldn't surprise anybody. But essentially, Ymir, 2,000 or so years ago, everything led up. Like all of the events, everything that happened to her, and her being there for all of eternity, led up to Grisha having 2 boys. Zeke of royal blood, and Eren, who was absolutely normal. And Eren using Zeke to go back to Ymir, who Eren is very much like. Eren and Ymir are very similar. They're both 2 people who they're just normal humans who through these extraordinary means have become capable of so much more, but they're still just people at the end of the day. Which ties back... I'm going to flip Whiteboard Kun over. Just have to do it. Okay, I need to get Whiteboard Kun flipped over and then switch it back and start writing some stuff. This episode, I don't feel as confident as I did in last episode. Last episode was like, oh, I've connected dots, I've figured it all out. This episode complicates things because now we're introducing Eren's plan and his motivations, and we're getting the Ymir backstory. I do like that as we're having this flashback with Ymir, Eren cuts her off. It's like he cuts off her thoughts. He's like, no, you get to choose. You do all this. So Eren and Ymir, they're just people. It's funny because this whole time, throughout this entire series, both Eren and Ymir have been framed as like deities. They've been framed as monsters, as devils. They've been framed as just the saviors of the world. But at the end of the day, Eren's like, no, you and I, Ymir, we're just people. We were just people who had things happen to them. We both are different. Ymir never felt like she had a choice in her life. And you could argue that Eren, he's wanted to have that freedom of choice. Eren's felt like they both have felt like they've been useless their whole lives, that they haven't been in charge of their own destinies. Oddly enough, Eren kind of hasn't been in charge of his own destiny because he's been, the Attack Titan influence. But they felt useless but gained Titan powers to give them some freedom. But then it ended up getting them scapegoated into various scenarios where they were either used or where they were taken advantage of, or whether people thought things about them that weren't true. So they are very, very similar. My question is, did Eren's like Ymir, so she finally found somebody that had the exact same mindset as her after 2,000 years. And did Eren's birth come about because fate and Ymir wished it? Is that tied to it? Eren's birth clearly maybe led him to make those decisions that led him back to Ymir. So it was something that was always meant to be. Eren was going to find Ymir at some point. She was willing him. It's like she was setting out the beacon. It was like a moth to a flame. She was trying to get Eren circling back towards her, but it was only through Zeke, through the royal blood that she had been a slave to her entire existence, that he was able to get to her. And so Eren tells her, he's like, I'm going to end the world to save you. And we're going to tie back to that. But he's like, I'm going to end the world in order to, if we go back to that moment where he's like, he just looks so sympathetic towards her. And Zeke goes to touch him. And in that moment, I love it that he's got his arms wrapped around her. And she's so mad. She has that same look as she's crying, where she's just like, no. And he says, you've been waiting this whole time for me. And like, you've been waiting for me to come and set you free. And Eren in that moment, he looks like, it's the softest we've ever seen Eren look, right? He looks so soft around her. He looks so soft. He's like, it's okay. I'm here now. You can let it all go, right? And she just looks so mad. She's like, I've been stuck doing this for years and years. And she's like, I'm tired of it. Like, just seeing her eyes, seeing how mad, and her eyes almost look the same as Eren's, like just seeing, it's that same face, right? It's that same like angry face that Eren made. They're connected. It's like him and Ymir are connected. And that tear that she sheds. And then that's when the thing. So there's a question of the devil of all earth and Ymir. Like, Ymir is connected to, I'm still going to call it the devil of all earth because what else do I call it? The centipede, the matter, but she's connected to it. It's part of her, right? And you can kind of see it in that moment. It has like two little prongs sticking out of it. It kind of looks like a centipede. Looks like a centipede. Has all the different tendrils, which you can kind of connect to the coordinate. You can connect to the coordinate, right? And there's the two little things. It's kind of cute. No, but that's what connects to his head. I was like, oh my God. It like ties back around. And it's what connects his head back to the body. Back to the body that Zeke was holding. I was wondering, I'm like, if we go back to the present with Eren, how is Eren going to connect back to his body? I was like, how are they going to do this? But it's the centipede. It connects him because he gains the power. He gains the power of the founder. Gains the power of, which is kind of crazy because if you think about it, when Reiss became the giant monstrosity titan, his body did the same thing. His body did the same thing as like the centipede, and it looked really gross. Oh my gosh, who knew? Who knew? But no, it connects him back. And Zeke, honey, he doesn't make it. And the moment that his eyes like shift, it's like, Now the question is, has Eren and Ymir like joined together? Has Eren and Ymir like fused together through the founding powers? Through the founder? Is he still gonna be like, is Eren just stuck there hugging Ymir this entire time? Is Ymir and Eren a ship? Are we gonna ship founder Ymir and Eren? Can we do that? I don't know. But it's really creepy. And then he becomes the founding titan. We've seen him as the attack titan. We haven't seen him as the Warhammer titan, but we're seeing him now as the founder. And she lends him her power. And he breaks open all the walls. And so in this moment, Peek's like, shit, I don't have anything to stand on. And so clearly she's fine, but Magath falls and Flock falls. We don't know. So I'm going to put over here my questions corner. We're going to put over here questions corner. Questions for episode 22. This spot over here. So did Magath die? I don't know because Flock didn't die. And Flock was in that same position. So we don't know about Magath yet. But Flock hasn't died. But all the walls are breaking and Connie and John are like, shit. And then Gabby's like, oh, crap. Okay. And we see later that Falco's in human. We don't know if Falco's in human form in the current place. But he's not in the Titan anymore. The pure Titans aren't there, right? But all the walls of Volmaria come crumbling down. And there's all the colossal Titans under them. Yep. What old Ymir's been working on for the last how many years? And Gabby's like, well, how about that? So, again, what foreshadowing? Isayama foreshadowed this with Reiss. The whole thing of the founding Titan of Eren. It looks like the skeleton. It looks like what Reiss was when he transformed back in Wish. And then, it just goes out of control. Oh my God. And just becomes this giant. And I like that Reiner saving Gabby. Our glorified babysitter. The babysitter Titan. Reiner. Okay. All right. Information available for public disclosure. The origin of Titans. According to legend, the founder Ymir obtained the power of the Titans when coming into contact with something. For generations, her blood and power were passed down by the Eldians. However, the identity of that something, which began it all, remains unknown. It may have been some type of pathogenic parasite, a god who pitied the founder Ymir and gave her power, or something else entirely. Yeah. Parasite. Could be a parasite. Could be a god. Could be something else. We don't know. It definitely, I mean, like, a parasite, sure. It's funny because it's like, it's something either microscopic and parasitic that leeches off of things, right? And usually that's viewed as like something lowly and like lower than scum. Or it's a god, right? Depending on what you believe. Fascinating. Okay, Isayama. I do like that with this Devil of All Earth thing, that Isayama is vague enough. I like that Isayama's like, why do I have to explain it? This is what it looks like. You decide. He's like, you're the audience, you're the reader. I do like that. I do like that Isayama gives us no concrete definition of what it is. We just know what it causes, right? And how it works. But we don't get an explanation necessarily. And I kind of like that. I like that he leaves it a little bit ambiguous. Like, okay, fair enough, sir. All right. But it doesn't matter now. What matters is that Eren has its power with Ymir. And I like, God, this is terrifying. It's just row after row after row of this like just skeletal being. And it's huge. It's freaking huge. It is a monstrosity. And all of the colossal titans are with it. And they're just crushing all the buildings. And Mikasa, yeah, that thing, what is that? It's enormous. Yeah, it's just this. And you know what's weird about it? So it looks like, okay, it looks like, we can't see the head of it, right? But it looks like the little, like the centipede thing, right? It looks like the centipede thing. It looks like a rib cage, like a giant rib cage. But you know what else it looks like? Like a bird cage. Looks like a giant ass bird cage. Is what it looks like. Okay. I love that shot of Armin and Mikasa just standing there looking at it like, what the hell? What? It looked like it appeared from where Eren was. That's... okay. And then Armin's like, he did it. Eren did it. But Armin doesn't look happy. Armin looks absolutely terrified, right? So I'm gonna put old Armin down here. Because Armin at this point is interesting. Armin looks terrified, for the record. Mikasa can't see what he looks like in that moment, but he looks scared. But he says, Eren did it. He did it. And Mikasa's like, what? She's like, you've been keeping quiet this whole time? Now's not the time. Tell me what his plan is. He says we won. And she's like, huh? I like that Mikasa's like, I can't hear you. And Armin says that they've won because Eren has the power of the founder. Okay. So he has control of the founder, right? And I like that Mikasa's like, I still can't hear you. What are you saying? If the rumbling has begun, Eren's the one behind it. He's going to crush the Global Alliance assembly in Marley. Okay. And I'm sorry, but when Armin says Eren's our ally, he always has been, he does not look convinced of that at all. He doesn't look like he believes it, right? He thinks that Eren, at first, is going to crush the Global Alliance and Marley. And that Eren is their ally. He always has been. Okay. So, all right. And Mikasa's like, okay, great. I like that we get this shot from the tower of all the colossal titans going by, and Yelena and them are just like, huh. So, and you know in Yelena's mind, she's thinking, okay, so did Zeke want this? Is this what Zeke wanted? Is this part of it? Because Anyan's kind of like, all right. And she says Zeke, which we don't know. Question number 2, Zeke's status, right? Zeke and all this. Zeke in the real world. Because Zeke was about to die. He like has half of his back gone. So what's that going to happen with Zeke? What's going to happen there? And so we cut to Mikasa and Armin just like on either side of each other, watching all this unfold. And Mikasa saying, Eren came home to be with us. Uh-huh. She's like, he came back to be with us, right? This is to help us, right? But then Armin says, you're kidding. That's odd. No, it can't be. Like, Armin's going through the ringer in this episode. He's like, Armin's like thinking out loud. I'm like, Armin, what are you doing, honey? So he's like, it's like Armin's brain is going into overdrive and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And he says, Mikasa. He says, even Welllllllleeeeee has come down. Like the whole wall. If he's just crushing the global alliance, what's the point? Okay, so Armin. Armin back in episode 19 or episode 18, when they were going up the stairs, Armin was thinking in his mind, like, when Eren was talking about all of the enemies across the sea, if we destroy all of them, will we be free? And Armin in that moment, he was like, wait, could it be? And he doesn't finish the thought because Mikasa kind of interrupts him. But my thought was, going out of that episode, I'm like, does Armin think that Eren is going to try to destroy everybody in the world? And not just Marley, but everyone, and wipe everyone out so that they'll be free. Is that what he thinks is going to happen? And it seemed like Armin was trying to be in denial and not accept that entirely, being like, no, Eren wouldn't do that. He wouldn't destroy everybody in the world. He's just going to destroy Marley so that we're safe for another 50 years and we'll have a chance at diplomacy. He's not going to try to destroy everybody. Like, I feel like Armin, his head and his heart had been kind of at odds since he thought about that, because his mind is saying, no, Armin, look, this is what Eren's going to do. And his heart's going, well, no, Eren's our friend. He won't destroy any chance of diplomacy with the rest of the world. He's not going to destroy the entire world. No. But so it seems like Armin's been at odds with himself. And then in this moment, he notes that all of Welllllllleeeeee is freed, right? And he says, if he's just crushing the global alliance, then what's the point of doing all of Welllllllleeeeee? Why not just a bit of Shiganshina, as several of you were noting? And so what I think is happening in this moment is that Armin doesn't want to lie to Mikasa and tell her that he's had this horrible suspicion the entire time that Eren actually is going to do something crazy. He hasn't wanted to say that to her. So instead, he's using this opportunity to be like, okay, I'm going to tell her what I originally thought first and let that sink in. And then I'm going to go, wait, what? But it can't be. There's another thing afoot. Like, I feel like Armin's trying to just cover his tracks and have it all come out at once. And it seemed natural. And so Mikasa won't suspect that he's thought this the entire time, which he has. So I guess that's what he's doing in this moment. But yeah, what's the point? And it's just like everybody walking by saying, he's like, Shiganshina's walls should be plenty. Why give up the walls to attack? If he was just doing a small demonstration to wipe out Marley, then Shiganshina's should have been enough. Why all of them? I'm like, Armin's going through a lot. And Mika's just sitting there like, I don't know. Like, Mika's just like trying to soak it all in. And Armin's brain is going to overdrive, trying to piece it all together. If he's just crushing the alliance in Marley, why use so many? And in this moment, Armin is terrified. He's like, why would he do that? Right? Like, piece it together, Mikasa. And then that's when they jump to the coordinate. I love it. I love this moment where they're all at the coordinate. That Eren brings them all there, right? He brings them all there in that moment. So Armin is suspect of Eren's plan. And Eren's about to confirm it. Okay. And so they're all brought there. Okay. And he says, hear me, subjects of Ymir. You know, for somebody that's just a person, he addresses them all like a king, like a ruler, right? I love that. Hear me, subjects of Ymir. Not Eldians. Okay. yeah, for somebody that is just a normal person, he sounds like he's acting like a ruler, right? And I love that flash that they're both like, wait, what? What just happened? And Mika says, like, I heard Eren's voice. And then they're there. Yep. Oh my god, I love how they're animated. Mika said Armin are animated so well. My name is Eren Yeager. And Jean is like, the fudge? I'm using the Founding Titan's power to address all the subjects of Ymir. Okay, so he's using the founder power to talk to everyone. Okay. To talk to everyone. Kind of like what the founder could do in erasing all of their memories. Okay. And Connie's just like, I like Connie's grabbing his head. Like, what did I just hear? And then Reiner, poor Reiner's like, Reiner's still in the Titan going, huh? I've undone the hardening of Parody Island's walls. So I'm guessing all of them? Are all the walls free? All three? Really? That's terrifying. All of the island walls. Okay, and then Gabi, I love Gabi in the sand. And the Titans buried within have begun their march. I love Gabi's just sitting there. And I love that Peak is standing, which is funny because Peak in the cart Titan is always like on all fours, but here she's standing up. So she's not dead yet. Okay. Interesting. And then poor Falco. Oh, and Falco has the spots on him. He doesn't have the armband, but he's got the little Titan marks too. Oh, no. My goal is to protect the people of Parody Island, the place I was born. So here's his goal. His goal is to protect the people of Parody Island where he was born. Okay. The place I was born. Okay. And then we see, oh my god, we see Louise. Okay, so Louise... We see Louise. We see the other, like some other scouts there. I see, we see old Keith. Old Keith Shaddis. We see him. We see like a bunch of people and their kids. And we see, Surma. Okay. And poor Keith is like, the hell? Okay. However, the world wants to exterminate my people and not just on the island. Okay, so are these... Oh, we see the Marleyans, all the Eldians from Marley, the subjects of Ymir that are there in Marley. We see all of them. So he's talking to all of them, not just the ones on Parody Island. Okay. Okay. So he said the world wants to kill all my people. All my people. Everywhere. Okay. Okay. Not just on the island. Yeah, I like that Eren says my people. And then Flock is just like sitting there like, okay. And then we see all of them staring at the coordinate. They will not stop until every last subject of Ymir is dead. And we see Historia sitting in that chair looking up at it. Oh my gosh. She doesn't seem surprised. She seems like, okay, saw this coming. And of course she looks a lot like Ymir. I refuse to let them. So yeah, so Eren's saying that Eren is refusing to let that happen. Okay. And so then, and she's looking up just at the big coordinate. The wall titans will trample every inch of the world beyond this island. And that shot of him just looking grisly, looking like a monster, like looking, it reminds me of an episode 20 where it showed like Zeke looking over at Eren. It showed Zeke looking over at Eren and he had that same face, but it was not like this, with the green eyes. So yeah, the wall titans, funny that. We've been calling them the wall titans all this time. The wall titans will trample everything beyond the island. Everything beyond the island. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's all distorted until every last life beyond our shores is wiped out. Until everyone else is gone. Oh, and it's all distorted. Oh my God, and that's where it ends. Okay. Oh my God. So yeah, this Eren's plan does not surprise me. I've been thinking this like all season. I'm like, Eren just wants to destroy the whole world. Eren's whole thing is like just destroy everybody else. Like it's just gonna be Parody Island left. Now I don't know how his plan. I don't know if he's gonna address, because he's addressing the subjects of Ymir that are not on Parody Island too. So is he gonna be like, tough luck, guys. Hope you make it. You know, is Eren just gonna be like, I hope y'all make it. I hope that works out for you. I don't know. I'm curious what he's gonna tell them, because I'm sure the people in Marley right now are going, huh? What are we supposed to do? And Reiner and they were probably like, what's our families going to do? Are they just gonna die if they're not on the island? Is he gonna like try to get them to go evacuate the people from Marley out of Marley so they can escape? Like what's gonna happen? Until every last life beyond our shores is wiped out. So, okay. I mean, I get the plan. Eren's plan has been like what we've been suspecting for most of this season. It's been either, I still don't, this is where it gets complicated, right? Because I'm sure a lot of you, it's funny, you all were badgering me like, well, the euthanization plan isn't good. Is it better than wiping out everybody else? Here's the funny thing about it all, right? Here's the funny thing about it all. The Zeke's plan, right? Zeke's plan to euthanize the Eldians is to stop it all, right? I'm curious though. I'm curious though, from Ymir's perspective, not from Eren's perspective, but from Ymir's perspective, would she be opposed to that? Right? That's what we don't know. I think it's really funny in this entire, I didn't note it over here, but I think it's funny in this entire episode, Ymir never speaks. She has no voice, right? Ymir doesn't get a voice in this entire episode. The whole flashback is about her, but she never says a word. She doesn't get a word in edgewise. She has no voice. And it's kind of funny because as a Titan, as the attack Titan, Eren has no voice. So it's a connection there between them. And this is like the first time in this whole series that Eren is really given the microphone. Like the whole series leading up to this point, Eren has been constantly been on the receiving end for so many things. And throughout season 4, when he has been on the offense, when he has been able to do his own thing, he's not really talked. He's not really said anything. And this is the first time that he actually gets the microphone, he gets to say what he wants. And so he lays out this plan to the subjects of Ymir, being like, this is what I'm doing. I'm protecting my people and destroying everybody else that stands in our way that wants to ruin us. So actually, this is the opposite, right? This is the opposite of Zeke's plan. Zeke's plan was to wipe out, by this logic, Zeke's plan was to wipe out the blood of the Titans. Okay? Zeke's plan was to wipe it out, right? Eren's plan is where there will only be the blood of the Titans. That's the thing. There will be nobody that doesn't have Eldian blood around. They'll all be Titans. So, by that logic, the power of the Titans... Well, but here's the thing. The power of the Titans would reign forever, right? I'm very curious about this because by Zeke's plan, the blood of the Titans would end and there would just be no more Eldians, no more blood of the Titans. It would all just go away. But by Eren's logic, the power of the Titans is going to continue on forever. The Eldians will be the only ones left. And you could argue, you could say, well, one of two things could happen. Either Eren could eat all of the Titan shifters, like I said this whole time that he's gonna like collect gym badges, get all the Titan powers together, and then when he dies, they'll just disperse to random people. And will the Eldians go one by one to like, you know, cut their kids' wrists and see who's the Titan shifter or not? I don't think so, but I don't know. Or the power of the Titans would just pass on, and that would be it. But it's funny because Willie kind of sets up the scenario that even when it was just the Titans, just the Eldians, they started fighting each other because there was conflict, right? There's going to be, as Erwin depicts this, there's conflict as long as there's two people in this world, right? So by Eren, it's in both of these plans, there are civilizations wiped from existence. In Zeke's plan, it's the Eldians. In Eren's plan, it's everybody else. So, but in both scenarios, there is genocide. Make that of what you will. In Zeke's plan, yeah, if all the Eldians are gone, there's still going to be conflict. There's still going to be, you know, conflict between civilizations and probably wars being disputed. The Eldians just won't be there for it. In Eren's plan, there's probably still going to be conflict, and who knows, there may be wars break out between the Titan shifters even after all the others are gone. But the point Eren is making is that no outsider, no outside force will oppress them. It's all just going to be an inside thing, right? And with Zeke's thing, there is no inside to be oppressed. Right? So, a lot of you were like, well, this plan doesn't sound that bad, Romania. And I was like, I hate the idea of euthanization. I don't like the idea of it. But I see where y'all are coming from. I still don't like it. But Eren's plan leaves a lot of problems too. So, And I'm curious. I'm so curious the next episode to see how everybody's going to react to this. Armin looked terrified by the end of this. Armin was like, I just kind of stood up for Eren thinking that this was just going to be one thing, and it's turned into something much bigger than that. Mikasa, I don't know her views. What is Connie and John going to think about this? What are the Eldians, what are the subjects of Ymir over in Marley thinking about this? Like, what is going to happen? And I feel like, though, he said that he's going to end the world to save Ymir. My question with that is, how is Eren not getting rid of the Titans, though, saving Ymir from her fate? Because Ymir is constantly building these Titans and doing this over and over again. So how is that saving her? How is it? That's the question. He says that he's going to save her by doing this, but how exactly does it end well for Ymir in the end? Like, this does make sense for Eren. Absolutely. Because this is giving every Eldian the freedom to do what they want. The freedom of their own choice. This totally ties back to what I was talking about in the last episode. Eren's whole deal is that right now we aren't able to make our own choices because of politics, because of oppression, because of war, because of the circumstances surrounding us and how people feel about us. We're not able to take a stand and do what we want. And so by Eren's logic, yeah, this is going to get rid of all those oppressors. Like, they're going to all get wiped out, and then no one will stop the Eldians from having their freedom of choice. Okay. But the power of the Titan still exists, and as we established in this episode with Ymir, her whole fate and her slavery is kind of tied to the fact that she has to keep making these Titans, and she's stuck there. So I'm still curious how Eren is planning to free her from that, if this plan goes through the way that it does. Again, I feel like there's something still missing. Like, there's a part of Eren's plan we're not being told about, and that Eren's keeping to himself. I don't know what it is, because, yeah, you could objectively, technically say, yeah, this plan is going to save Armin and Mikasa. They're not going to die in a war against Marley if Marley's gone. Problem solved. Armin and Mikasa are going to be safe on the island because, no, there's not going to be anybody to bother us. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's something as simple as that. Maybe Eren's whole deal is that, yep, this is the simple solution. I did it. But, yeah, there's problems with it, of course. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, what'd you expect? I didn't expect any different. I was curious to know if this would... I still feel like something's missing. Something's not being told. Because again, the idea of Eren... This whole idea that Eren has seen the future. Has Eren seen his death? And if he has seen his death, what did he see at the end? What was the future that Eren saw that he's using this power to make a reality? How does that go down? So that's what's curious. I want to know, I don't want to know for spoiler reasons, but how far does his memories into the future extend? Is Eren the last Attack Titan? And if so, how is that possible? Because by this logic, by Zeke's plan, Eren possibly could be the last Attack Titan. If none of the other kids, if it goes to an unborn, here's the thing with Zeke's plan too, if it goes to somebody that hasn't been born yet, if Zeke prevents Eldians from being born, then if Zeke's plan had gone through and Eren was not able to have his power pass on, then yeah, I could see why he would see himself as the last Attack Titan. By this logic, are there Attack Titans beyond Eren that have shown him the future? Maybe that's it. Maybe Eren has seen the future from his future self through other Attack Titans ahead of him. Maybe that's how he's seen the future. Maybe Eren doesn't live past this battle, but whoever inherits his Titan, he sees it through them in the future. Maybe. I don't know. Because the whole title of this episode is From You 2,000 Years. Because episode 1 was called To You 2,000 Years in the Future, and this is called From You 2,000 Years in the Future. So it's like from Ymir to 2,000 years forward. But we established that this was not 2,000 years yet. It's like 100 years or so out. So curious if maybe From You 2,000 years in the future is referring to the Attack Titan that goes on from Eren, and that Titan sent Eren back memories to show that, yeah, Eren, you've got to keep doing this so that we get to this future with this future Attack Titan. Maybe that's it. So, I hadn't thought about that, but maybe Eren, that would kind of tie to Eren's whole slavery in this, that Eren doesn't really have a choice because he's just doing this because he knows in the future it has to happen through the Attack Titan that comes after him. It has to keep going. But I'm curious to know if that's really what's going down. So this, I felt a lot more confident after episode 20. And then of course, that's what I get for being cocky. I was like, oh, I figured it out. Everything's great. Like I was patting myself on the back. Episode 20, I was like, I took a whole week off, and the whole time that whole week off, I was like, oh, Romania, you figured it out. And this episode, I was like, Eren's plan's very clear, but there's lots of things that I'm like, well, how is that going to go? How is that going to work? How is that going to tie into the thing with Ymir? Does Zeke have any influence at this point? Is he just done? Is he just kicked out of the coordinate and he can't make the wish to Ymir anymore? Is Eren going to spend the entire rest of the season just hugging Ymir and being like, everything's okay? And is that how it's going to go? I don't know. Eren is terrifying in the birdcage form. Eren in birdcage form is terrifying. And it's like the ultimate epitome of who Eren is. He's been trapped in a birdcage this entire series, and now he is a literal birdcage with the founder powers. And he's just not free. He just has to see this through, but it's his choice, right? But it's his choice to let it all happen. I like Eren's message to Ymir that she's just a person and she doesn't have to listen to anybody. She can do whatever she wants. I like that message to her. And Eren, his whole character has embodied that spirit throughout this entire series. The spirit of, no, you can do whatever you want because you were born. You have that birthright. You have that privilege. But this is taking it to the extreme. So, and maybe there's something still to come up that we as the audience don't know yet. I don't want to be spoiled, though. I don't want manga spoilers. I don't want theories that may tie into things. Those of you that have read the manga, that you're like, I think this theory. I'm like, I don't want to know yet because I want to figure it out as we go. But, so it's starting. My ramblings will now be about the rumbling. It'll be rumbling ramblings from here on in. Holy crap. So yeah. This was a very odd episode. It's not my favorite. I loved episodes 19 and 20 an awful lot. Episode 21, it's odd, but this was the 5th episode, right? And the 6th episode is usually where things go down. So, next up, y'all. I'm probably going to watch it in the next couple days. I'm going to take the comments that everybody has left the remaining comments for episode 18 and episode 20 that I haven't gotten to yet, I'm going to take those into consideration and mark those down for episode 22. So probably won't be as many as for this episode. I had so many comments, which I kind of anticipated it because I'd taken up so much time off. But yeah, so what can we do, right? But anyway, I'm really excited for episode 22. I'm almost caught up, y'all. I'm getting there. I think, what are they on, episode 25 or 26 now? So I can't believe I'm so close, y'all. I'm so close to being caught up. But I'm not there yet, so. In any case, I'm very curious to know what y'all thought down below. Please no spoilers. And I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care. And yeah, I'll be back soon with episode 22 of Attack on Titan. Bye.